Before we dive into any of the business meetings, we have a guest speaker tonight. Clint McCoy, deer biologist with Ohio Division of Wildlife, has so graciously decided to provide us with an update on CWD here in Ohio, which I think is a pretty pertinent topic these days. So with that, I'll turn it over to Clint.
All right, thank you, Caleb. Appreciate the invitation to share some maybe not so good news with the group, but at least it's important news that I think everyone should be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I wanted to basically go through, give everyone an update. This is basically a modified presentation to what was given to the Wildlife Council a couple of weeks ago. Mike Tokovich and Bob Ford both were heavily participants in this thing, so went ahead and acknowledged their input and what they've done with this presentation as well. So we'll get started here. What I'd like to talk about, at least give everyone here a background on the history of chronic wasting disease and our surveillance efforts up to this point in Ohio. We'll talk about a timeline of the latest developments, our response to that, and talk a little bit about maybe how that disease found its way here, what to expect moving forward. So in Ohio, historically, we began active surveillance for chronic wasting disease in 2002. And since that time, we've tested roughly 25,000 deer. It'll be a little more than that after everything's said and done this year. And up to this point, we had never detected a positive case in wild deer in Ohio. Our first chronic wasting disease detection within the state was in Holmes County in 2014 on a shooting preserve. Since that time, we've had subsequent positive detections in 3 other captive facilities in Holmes and Wayne counties. Each of those facilities, including the original shooting preserve, were depopulated, and all told, since 2014, we've had 25 total positive deer, all within captive breeding facilities. And so once we detected the first one in 2014, of course, we ramped up our surveillance efforts in the vicinity, and because of the other positive detections in captive facilities, since they're in the same vicinity, we continued to look really hard in that most of Holmes County and parts of Wayne County, more recently in western Tuscarawas County. But all this intense surveillance over the last 6 years or so resulted in roughly 3,000 samples and no positive detections in wild deer in the area. And then imagine our surprise, this past year, this fall, we did detect our first wild positive in Wyandot County, of all places. So what have we done in Wyandot County historically? Well, in 2002, when we began surveillance efforts in Ohio, of course, I say we, I wasn't here yet, but Division of Wildlife had developed a sort of a basic risk model to prioritize sampling efforts for chronic wasting disease. At that time, Wyandot County was one of about 30 counties in the state that when looking at risk factors at the time, they were deemed as effectively no risk. And very few samples been collected from the county up until basically 2019. So at that time, 2019, we decided to revisit some of our assumptions about sampling and surveillance and how it related to chronic wasting disease. And we began with the help of new ways to get samples, and that's through partnering with taxidermists. We began to sample, or at least try to sample, all 88 counties in the state. And we're very successful at doing so with those partnerships that I've mentioned. The reason for that is chronic wasting disease, most of you I know are familiar with it, but the insidious nature of the disease and knowing that disease can manifest itself in your population from things that happened many years ago, because the infective prion can remain infective in the environment for really an unknown number of years. So because of unknown histories as far as what's been going on in these counties over time, as far as where deer have come from, hunters going out west, bringing deers back or elk parts back and dumping them on the landscape, we just didn't know. So this was the impetus for trying to make sure that we had our bases covered and trying to get samples from basically everywhere in the state. So that was 2019. This past year, 2020, we actually had lowered the quota in Wyandot County because of our new risk model, saying that there was very low risk in Wyandot County, and then very number of things. We're talking, deer density, number of captive facilities, the number of deer processors and taxidermists, the number of hunters hunting out of state, all these different factors. Wyandot County was very low on the list when it came to risk. So we actually had lowered the quota in that county this year. But as luck would have it, whether you view this as being extremely lucky or extremely unlucky, we detected a positive deer from the county, and it was actually only the 12th deer collected from a taxidermist this year. All right, so what was the timeline with this particular deer? Hunter shot this buck on October 26th on private property about 1.5 miles north of the Killdeer Plains Wildlife Area. The hunter recovered the buck about 9 days later on November the 4th. This was originally a bit concerning because of the time lag between the time the hunter shot the deer and the time that he actually recovered it, but all indications are that the deer actually took several days to die before. So the deer actually died shortly before it was found, it turns out. So it was relatively fresh when found. As you can see, these pictures are from the deer in question. And so you can see from the top right that the deer is recently dead. So the hunter recovered the buck on 11/4, took it to the taxidermist. And as I mentioned before, we've partnered with taxidermists in collecting chronic wasting disease samples. So this particular sample was collected as part of routine surveillance, just like many thousands of other deer have, and submitted to Colorado State University to be screened for chronic wasting disease. And they came back on December the 8th and said, and it was actually somewhat comical, I guess, in that you just got an email saying basically all these samples were not detected except for this one. And, probably it came from someone who didn't realize our situation and that we had never detected a wild deer with chronic wasting disease. So it was much more of a shock to us than I'm sure they expected. But that was December 8th. Subsequent to that, 2 days later, the lab ran an IHC, which is kind of a more rigorous, more standardized and accepted method for confirming chronic wasting disease, and confirmed again that it was positive. And I guess just to soothe everyone's minds about whether this was really positive or not, it was sent to the National Vet Services Lab in Ames, Iowa, to confirm it once again with IHC on 12/23, kind of the gold standard. So we, in effect, 100% are dealing with a positive chronic wasting disease deer in Ohio. So what was our response? Right off the get-go, we went ahead and talked to the taxidermist, talked to the hunter to try to get our heads around what, kind of put that timeline together as far as what had happened. Made sure that the taxidermist records were all in order to make sure that the sample, in fact, did match this particular deer, and everything looked to be A-OK on that end. Our staff went and collected the carcass on December 11th, collected tissues for DNA testing, and properly disposed of the carcass along with the top layer of soil. And then we continued with the response plan by establishing an enhanced surveillance area in the immediate vicinity of the positive, which included 15 townships in Wyandot, Marion, and Hardin counties. And that's basically done by drawing a 10-mile circle around the positive location. And then we go from there and kind of capture all the townships that are intersected by that buffer. And so this was what the public would see when we're requesting that they submit samples for chronic wasting disease testing. And we push this map out to say, okay, if you are hunting in any of these townships and you harvest deer, we would like to get our hands on it for testing. So we did the best we could to utilize the rest of hunting season to gather as many samples as possible from the immediate area. And luckily we had a couple of firearm seasons left, our 2-day bonus gun season and muzzleloader season, along with several controlled hunts that occur on Killdeer Plains Refuge, which, as I said, is just a mile and a half south of where the positive was detected. We put a self-serve kiosk on site to where hunters could drop their deer heads off to be sampled. And the controlled hunts at Killdeer Plains have and will continue to be. I think there's one more controlled hunt this coming weekend, but they have been an awesome source for getting tissue samples for us. One of the first controlled hunts there in January, we actually had 70 some deer killed in one day. So pretty awesome response from our hunters. Since the positive was detected, these numbers are changing all the time, but roughly 225 samples collected. 56 of those have been, we've got results back, not detected. Obviously, a lot of samples still outstanding, but at this time, no additional positives have been detected. All right, so it's there. We found it. First question, of course, for us was, how in the world did it get there, particularly in Wyandot County? So talk a little bit about pathways for how this particular disease can be introduced. One way, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, is natural movement of wild deer. Deer, as I will show you in just a moment, can and do cover some fairly large distances. The other one, possibly a more likely factor here, are the anthropogenic factors. One possible way, of course, is the movement of live deer, which in most cases is we're talking about the captive deer being moved around. Another way is the movement of dead deer, because we know these prions remain active. They're just as infected from a dead deer as they are live deer. And so movement of deer and deer parts and improperly disposing of those on the landscape could certainly be a source of disease. And then there's the final kind of crazy thing with chronic wasting disease, given that it can be taken up in plants and adhere to soil and all these things, is that any number of ways of transmitting some of these hay, dirt, just the nature of the disease gives rise to many different ways in which these prions can be spread across the landscape. So let's talk about natural deer movements. Here's an example of a long distance deer movement. This is from southern Wisconsin. This was a female juvenile, and this particular female dispersed 50 miles one way. This is just west of Madison, Wisconsin. You can see Madison up top right-hand corner of that map. 50 miles one way, and ended up settling in a new home range just a mile or two south of the original. So a lot of walking to end up close to home, but still it kind of gives you an idea of how far these deer can and do move across the landscape. Here's Missouri farm country. This is a mature buck movement who traveled 186 miles. This is a straight line distance was about 134 miles, but this deer crossed major rivers 7 times, crossed an interstate, railroad, 8 state highways, just an incredible long distance movement for this particular animal. Now, granted, this is not the norm, but this is just to give you an idea of what we do know about how far these deer can and do move across the landscape. Here's a buck from Ohio. This was a captive buck that escaped from a captive farm in Dundee, Ohio, which is Wayne County, and that's down there on the south portion of the map you're looking at there. That was late September. On the 8th of November, it was caught on a trail camera almost 18 miles north of there in northeastern Wayne County. And then on the 14th of November, it was actually killed on I-77, 13 miles north of where it was caught on trail camera, for a total of 31 miles traveled in a very short period of time. So just another example of, a lot of times we kind of get stuck in thinking that, these deer are, a mile or two and that's all they go. But there are instances where these things can just pick up and skedaddle. So knowing how far these deer can and do move, it made sense to look at, all right, well, where's the nearest known positives to where we found this one? And it turns out Michigan has got chronic wasting disease in the wild herd. Jackson County, which is about 30 miles north of our border, but puts it at about 110 miles from the location in Wyandot County where this deer was killed. So while unlikely that this deer came from southern Michigan, given what I just showed you, it's not impossible. And then the other closest closest positive detection we have is in one of our captive facilities in Holmes County at about 70 miles away. So that's what we know about natural deer movements and the possibilities that's where this deer originated from. What about the anthropogenic introduction methods? So you're looking at those white dots are captive cervid facilities. So there's about 8 of those on that map. To my knowledge, most, if not all of these facilities are small volume, just a handful of deer type facilities. And this is often the first introduction pathway folks will point at as to where chronic wasting disease came from. But I just, it's important to, as a reminder that, this isn't the only pathway. Dead deer are, like I said, improperly disposed of dead deer are just as likely to leave prions on the landscape and lead to disease. And so here's the processors and taxidermists found in the vicinity. Of course, lots of deer are going through these places. And then of even more importance, these are hunters' home addresses. This represents roughly 60% of our successful hunters and where they lived. And the point is to show you any one of these dots on the map could serve as a source of infection. You think about where those hunters live, whether they killed a deer somewhere else in Ohio, or they killed one in Kansas or Colorado or Wisconsin or wherever, and they bring high-risk parts back to their home and pitch those out the back door. It just takes one instance. What we know about the infectivity and the level of the amount of prion it takes to introduce disease, basically one misplaced carcass can result in disease if it's picked up by a deer. So it's important to think about where this disease came from. We may never know, but these are the likely scenarios. So what do we expect here in Wyandot County? Are we talking about a spark, or are we talking about a fire? It's too early to know for sure right now, but if it's a spark, then the source of disease is going to be well beyond our current focal area, which is unfortunate, and it will be a while before we identify the source. And this is certainly not out of the question that this is a possibility. It could be, or it's fire. So if it is a fire, then intense surveillance around the where we're looking around the focal area, at where we're looking at this point, should reveal additional positives. And so we'll continue looking to see if that's the case. But I'll talk about a few other states, differences between sparks and fires. So here's a Michigan case. In the summer 2017, a deer was shot on a crop depredation permit, and it tested positive. This is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There was more than 1,000 deer tested within 10 miles of that positive, with no more deer testing positive, with the nearest positive being about 50 miles away. So that's looking like a spark in that case for sure. In Mississippi, this one's pretty crazy as well. So their first positive was down on the Mississippi River on the west side of the state there. But their second positive, way up in the northeastern portion of the state, was a clinical yearling buck, meaning that it was a buck that had been carrying around the disease for at least a year and a half. And it was 40 miles from the nearest positive. Hundreds of deer tested and no additional positives. So again, looks to be a spark in that case as well. In Tennessee, not the case. Tennessee, when they found a positive, they were sitting on a raging fire. And 10 of their first 80 deer tested were positive. And so different scenarios playing out. And so we've yet to see what scenario that we're going to fall under at this point, but we're going to continue looking. And that kind of brings me to the next steps. So the next steps, and again, I took this particular presentation from one that we gave to council about 2 weeks ago, I guess, where we were, and at this point we said, okay, our next steps are we're going to compare DNA from our chronic wasting disease positive tissue and the same tissue that we recovered from that animal at the harvest location, just to, triple, double, quadruple check that we're dealing with the same animal. And in fact, since then we have done that. We did get DNA results back confirming that the deer that we picked up, for the one that we thought was positive, was positive. So we are at least looking in the right location. We do know the deer, we do know the source of that sample that did test positive. So we can kind of put that one behind us at this point. But what we are doing is fairly exciting. Their contact at Penn State has used DNA to basically identify subpopulations of deer in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland. And so what we're going to enter in to this project, kind of take advantage of some neat stuff that's going on, and get some DNA samples out to Dr. Walter at Penn State to see if he can kind of do the same thing in Ohio, identify subpopulations in Ohio. And I guess with the idea that we can take the DNA from our positive deer, compare it to the subpopulations within the state to see whether it's a local deer or one that's moved in from a considerable distance away, and hopefully help focus future surveillance. So some important things about this DNA analysis. It's not going to tell us what county the deer's from. We'd be wishing for a little too much if we ever expect that. But what it should do is rule out the possibility that our positive deer came from another state, and it should be able to place our positive deer within an Ohio subpopulation. And so in turn, that might, if in fact we can see that we can put this deer in a subpopulation, it might be able to inform where we need to be focused in future surveillance efforts. If this is a spark and this deer had traveled quite some distance to get to where it was eventually killed, then using this DNA analysis, we can identify, at least in general, where we should be looking for the source of disease. So if we determine that it's a spark, we're going to use DNA to hopefully inform future surveillance directions, continue broadening our efforts and using larger concentric circles until we find the source of disease. And to me, that this is a little bit more of a worst case scenario. Best case scenario is that we actually start, if we don't start finding more positives within the general vicinity of the first, we're going to spend a lot of time and effort and to look for where the source of disease is. But if it is a fire and the source of disease is close by to the initial positive, then at that point, we just continue establishing the extent of infection using progressively larger circles around new positives, and then do our best to contain both spread and prevalence of the disease in that area. So that's it. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Well, I do have one, Clint. This is Alan Lee.
Okay, hey, Alan.
Is there any chance of using? I don't understand what the distance needs to be away from something for radioisotope testing for where an animal was raised. Is that even in consideration in this instance?
That's a good question, Alan. We haven't talked about radioisotopes. There is some kind of along those same lines, though. There is some new work being done in Michigan where they are trying to identify different strains of prion. So trying to identify, if you can do that, then you can say, okay, well, this looks like the same type of prion that's in Michigan deer, or this looks like the same kind of prion that's caused chronic wasting disease in Pennsylvania deer, kind of thing. But yeah, we'll have to talk about radioisotopes because I hadn't thought about that.
That's a great question, Alan. We have another question from Joe Thompson. She's saying, any interest or concern about carry-on feeders since the carcass was on landscape for several days? Is that something of a consideration? Yeah,
I guess. I mean, it's always going to be a concern. These prions get taken up and can move all over the place. There's nothing we're going to be able to, obviously there's not much we can do about them carrying prions off somewhere else, but hopefully they don't get outside of our 10-mile surveillance zone.
Clint, I have a question.
Yeah.
And it's in regard to, safe practices when being out in the field. As many of you on the call probably know, for doing herpetology work, there's protocols and cleaning your boots and doing certain things, having multiple pairs of boots. Is there any thought of putting any of those protocols out into the public, or is there those protocols currently out into the public for hunters and other enthusiasts to practice those kinds of safe techniques for cleaning their equipment?
So we do have some information available particularly for large volume processing where you 60% household bleach and that sort of thing. That information's out there. We've mostly taken the stance trying to stay away from instilling fear in people and more just common sense approaches to wearing gloves, washing your equipment, and most importantly, at least for us and kind of containing disease, most importantly is properly disposing of high-risk carcass parts. And for most people, that's basically double bagging it and putting it in your garbage to take to the landfill. So that's kind of our most important advice for hunters and outdoor enthusiasts is carcass disposal.
Clint, this is Nick Shell. I have a follow-up question with that. I believe it was just this past November, there was a change in regulation on allowance of deboned meat and or transport of animals across state lines. I think that was loosened a little bit for taxidermy and meat processing purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Has this new case brought that back to consideration and maybe revisit that in the future?
Not at this time, at least not that I'm aware of. So I guess what Nick is referring to is we had basically a complete carcass ban on any deer or cervid originating from outside of Ohio. So if you went anywhere outside of Ohio and shot a deer and wanted to bring it back without following a number of restrictions as far as what you could bring back, that was hurting some of our state border processors in particular. So a lot of hunters going to West Virginia, killing a deer, wanting to come back and take their deer to a processor in Ohio. We were seeing a pretty significant impact on some of those processors. And so what we had tried to do is take a little more less intrusive approach to these guys and allow those carcasses to come back to Ohio so long as they ended up at a certified processor or taxidermist. And so certified processor or taxidermist would be someone that has basically watched a presentation on chronic wasting disease and then passed a test on asking various questions about the disease itself, as well as different disposal type, make sure they're well informed.
Clint, this is Cody Grasser. First of all, great presentation, very informative. The DNA testing that you mentioned to determine like subpopulation origin, did you say a time frame on that? Like when do you guys expect to start that and potentially have an answer?
Yeah, that's a good question, Cody. Thank you. We are currently rounding up tissue samples to send to Penn State for analysis. It's hard to, I hate to get anybody's hopes up, but I'm hoping by spring, say April, May, that we might be able to have some data back for that.
Hey, Clint, I have one question from someone that's not able to get on here. What about baiting? Are we considering doing any baiting bans?
I don't know, Alan. It's always a sticky subject, as you might imagine, or as you probably well know. At this time, I haven't heard anything when it comes to that. Council did. There was some comment after this particular presentation at council meeting. There was a comment from some of the council members about potentially revisiting the rules around baiting in the state.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know you realize that we did do baiting bans, in our DSA. And
yes.
It was a joke. There was no ban. So.
Oh, it wasn't enforced, I guess is what you're saying.
Well, yes, there was a ban. It was not enforced, nor was it
followed.
Adhered to. So, yeah. So I just wondered.
We have another question from Hannah Kopp, and she's asking, well, it's a two-parter, it looks like, or two. Is it recommended that hunters across the state get their deer sampled for CWD, whether to assure their deer is safe before consumption or simply for data collection?
So at this time, we are recommending folks within the immediate area to have their deer sampled for chronic wasting disease, more so from, we obviously want the samples for data collection to determine if and where additional positives are. But one thing that we are trying to get done, so chronic wasting disease testing is costs a lot of money when we're doing it statewide, and especially once we have intense surveillance going on. Right now, there's 3 different areas of the state where we're doing intense surveillance, so that accounts for lots of samples, and those samples cost money to be tested. So we can't have hunters from all over the state do it on our dime. There are ways for hunters, they can send it to Ohio Department of Agriculture and have it tested, but it costs quite a bit. I think it used to be $30, but I think it's upwards of $80 at this point, which is really unfortunate. One thing that we're talking about doing is offering basically a special deer permit that would cover, basically, it would be a deer tag, but it would also cover the cost of getting your deer tested. So what you could do, and this is, this hasn't been gone through yet, but it's definitely something that the deer team and we have some support from some administrators, but we want to offer this permit that will allow hunters to have their deer tested at a reasonable cost. Just simple customer service. And what we could do at that time, we have our cooperating taxidermists all across the state. One way this would work would be that you shoot a deer, and even if it's really far away from anywhere we're interested in really looking, or anywhere that we've set up these intensive surveillance areas, you can still go to one of these participating taxidermists, show them your permit. Hey, I've already paid for this deer to be sampled, and then they would get their deer sampled that way. So not in place yet, but it's certainly something that we want to do, just to be able to offer that customer service without incurring lots of cost.
Hey Clint, this is Alan Lee again. Looking back in the comments, there were a couple of comments on, the fact that prions can be picked up with plants. Has there been any instance that you're aware of that that it has been spread to a different area, like through hay cutting or anything like that? Do we know of anything, or has there been any instance of a positive being picked up that way?
No, Alan, I don't think we have any direct evidence that that's been the source of a new infection. I don't know how we would ever determine that if that were the case. We do know that it takes an infinitesimally small amount of prion to initiate disease. And at that point, I guess it's just luck whether a deer munches on a particular part of a plant that had prion on it or not.
We have another question through chat. Mark Wiley is asking, if a hunter pays out of pocket for a test with ODA, will ODA share the test results with ODNR?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Leave it to Mark Wiley to stump me. I don't know the answer to that. Historically, we've used ODA for our sampling purposes, and we obviously have a good working relationship with them. But unless we set it up for them to notify us, I don't know that they would automatically share those results with us.
And I have a follow-up question to that, considering your answer you just gave. Since that is not something that they're required to do, is there any thought to putting an MOA in practice with ODA to ensure future samples are shared with ODNR?
Yeah, at this point, it's been such a small number of hunters that are paying $80 to have their deer tested that the benefit to us has been really small, I guess. Because again, if we're getting deer from areas where we're interested in getting deer from, we're paying, DNR is paying for those because we're asking hunters to bring them to us. It's only those areas that are outside of our focus where we're asking hunters to have their deer tested if they want it done on their own.
Very good. Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead, and I know we've had some excellent questions and it was an excellent presentation. We were very appreciative of you doing that. And we will, I think we'll be planning on posting this somewhere. Sarah Leonard is the guru of all things posted for OWMA. So we're going to go ahead and move on for the meeting, and I'll go ahead and throw it back over to Caleb. Thanks, Clint.
All right, thanks guys for inviting me.
Thanks, Marcy, and thank you, Clint. That was a great presentation. Clint, if you want to go ahead and put your contact information down in the chat box, In case anyone else has questions, they can email them directly to you.
Yeah, no problem. I can do that.
So I guess we'll kick off our actual business meeting here. So call the meeting to order. And the first thing I have on the agenda here is officer reports. And President-elect Cody Grasser is going to provide us with an update.
It's really my only task here is to announce my successor. But yeah, this year we were happy to have 2 candidates for the president-elect position. Pictured here, Christina Slover and Mark Wiley. And Christina is a natural resources technician and wildlife specialist with the Monroe Saltwater Conservation District. Mark Wiley is a wildlife biologist with the Ohio Division of Wildlife. I've actually had the opportunity to work professionally with both of these nominees and was very excited to hear their interest and willingness to be nominated. I know they'd both be a great addition to the OWMA board, and it'd be a pleasure to work with them. So first, I'd just like to say thanks to both Mark and Christina for their time and interest and their continued involvement with OWMA. So getting down to the results, our vote was open for, I think, like 20 days or just about 20 days. We had almost 90 members vote, which is pretty good, and it resulted in a very close race. At the end of the day, the winner of the president-elect position was Mark Wiley. Congratulations to Mark, and again, thank you both, and that's the end of my report.
Congratulations, Mark. Thank you, Christina, for your interest, and we look forward to working with you, Mark. The next officer's report is with Ohio Chapter of the Wildlife Society, Renee Buck.
There we go. Okay. So I didn't have that prepared. I was just going to tell you guys all who won our position. Thanks, Cody. We had actually 3 candidates running president-elect, Joe May, Aaron Hazelton, and Becky Crow. And Aaron Hazelton ended up taking the win with 24 votes out of 43. So we didn't get as many people voting for us. So congratulations, Aaron. I don't know if she's on the call or if she's able to make it or not, but we're going to get with her and get her up and running and ready to go. And that's pretty much all I have as an update. I have some other things I'm going to add later, other than I'm looking forward to maybe actually getting in touch with you guys in person someday this year and do things in public with other people. So that would be the hope, to get some workshops and other engagements together, and kind of get back together again.
Thank you, Renee. So we'll go down the list here of officer reports and have secretaries. So secretary with the OWMA is Sarah Leonard. So you're up, Sarah.
Hi, guys. So I think it's very sweet that Marcy said, I am a guru. I am not. I'm just a millennial who can Google things. But this year, the board has decided that running the website should be an official secretary responsibility. What that means for us is that moving forward, there will be an in-house tutorial on how to run the website, email, Facebook, and our new YouTube channel for any of the incoming secretaries. This year, a lot of work has been put into the website to meet our new digital needs, because obviously things were a little different this year. With the help of student volunteers, the website now features a membership dues payment option. And hopefully sometime soon, we will also have a way to sign up for emails through our website. Now we are also including our conference videos on the website and YouTube, which this is a change that we have decided we would like to keep even after we resume in-person events. This will allow us to share this information and educate wildlife professionals near and far that can't attend our conference for whatever reason. And I think it would be a great resource for students either way. We feel that providing these presentations throughout the year will help further our mission, which is to foster and promote wildlife research and management. We have added our partners to our website, and we look forward to adding more of them who work with us in the future to create and promote wildlife-related content and opportunities for professionals and students. And coming soon, once we get the conference behind us, we will have a resource page on our website. This will include links to job boards, professional development content, volunteer opportunities, and other relevant resources for students and young professionals. So if any of you guys have information you would like to share with us and we can put it on our website, I would love to hear from you because we're always looking for interesting things to provide to our students and members. I'm really excited. A lot of this digital stuff has been kind of my baby, but particularly the YouTube channel has been my baby. And our subscriber count at this moment is 228, which is really awesome considering that we just made this channel in the fall and we've only uploaded these videos like a week ago. Our watch time is 12,700 minutes. Like, I don't know how many minutes you guys have in a day, but it's not 12,700. So what that really does is it tells us that you guys are watching the videos, and that is super validating because we weren't really sure how this was going to be received this year going virtual, especially since this is a field where we really like to be in person. We intend to utilize the YouTube channel throughout the year. We've been thinking about providing presentations in the spring. So if anyone has research that will be more prepared towards the spring and you'd like to work with us, we'd love to see if we can put something together. And lastly, I know I'm updating you guys on so much, but this is also really exciting. So our Facebook this year, we decided to boost some of our posts since we are a lot more digital this year. Now we only spent $30. I can go get lunch for $30. Okay. So for $30, we were able to take our audience from 500 to 847. Our reach on Facebook grew to 27,000 people. I don't know 27,000 people. I don't know where they are, but that's huge for us. And then what was even more exciting was the event page that we created specifically for the conference. It reached over 100,000 people. Like, I don't know where they came from, but that was really incredible because we boosted, like the money we invested to boost helped gain traction on Facebook. And if you're familiar with Facebook, it's kind of mean. It has an algorithm. So if your posts don't get any engagement like likes and shares, it's just going to stay buried and nobody's going to see it. So that upfront investment of only a few dollars here and there on different posts allowed us to break through that. And once we got there, the genuine engagement from everybody who was interested really propelled it to 100,000 people. Like, I can't get over that. So we cannot be more appreciative to all of you guys who do engage on our social media. It means a lot to me because it validates my late nights and all the work that I've been doing. And it also really helps us reach more people who don't know about OWMA and our conference. So we want to tell you guys that we really, really appreciate it, and we couldn't have done it without all of you. So with that, I'll give it back to Caleb.
I want to jump in and say something, Sarah. Excellent job, by the way. It's all amazing. But at Metro Parks, we shared your YouTube channel with all of our volunteers. So all of our Metro Parks volunteers as just like an ongoing educational opportunity since we can't really engage with them right now. And it's been very well received. So just throwing that out there, if anybody has any kind of groups that you can send it to, is just, here's a lot of information, learn something, immerse yourself in study. So it's been really great. So huge kudos to you guys.
Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, Sarah. Great report. Thank you, Grace, for doing that through Five Rivers. That's going to hopefully educate a lot of people and, boost our success with OWMA. So the next officer report is Gabe Carnes. So you have the floor, Gabe.
Yeah, I'll heap a little bit more praise on the OWMA YouTube channel. Teaching courses semester in, semester out, always looking for ways to connect students with professionals. And the fact that we can do that through digitally recorded presentations made a lot of sense for me to push out sort of the grazing and fire pollinators video to my wildlife habitat management class. And I also, highlighted a couple of other videos that were posted there, not the least of which is the fact that humans are not the only species to have been pandemicked in 2020. Our rabbits taking it on the chin out in the desert Southwest as well. So that's fantastic and hope that continues. For Ohio chapter of the Wildlife Society, no major updates on my end. I am going to lobby hard to get the verb pandemic, which means you can be pandemicked, as most of our in-person events were this year. And the Student Wildlife Research Symposium was a casualty, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 12 months. So scheduled for spring, pushed to fall, canceled in fall, pushed to spring, canceled this spring. So we'll be working with Jen Dennison to ensure our participation is in lockstep with them whenever they return to an in-person Student Wildlife Research Symposium. I'll let the other officers kind of share on some of the other events. Again, pretty minimal update from my end. As always, if anyone has an announcement they want to make, Nick Shell, Cody Grasser, some of the others have been good about sending some of the sign-up incentive deadlines, which are coming down the pike, kind of hitting here in the next several weeks, including those things in newsletters, but always happy to hit the forward button as well. So when we can be of use, use us.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gabe. Next officers on the list here is the treasurer reports. So OWMA treasurer is Sarah Zaleski. You have the floor, Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to report that we are doing well financially. We are in the black. Currently, we have $10,645 in our checking account, $293 in our savings. We've been using PayPal to collect the membership dues, which has worked out well for us. We have over, I think, 77 current members that have paid through PayPal or via check. And we have 22 potential student members who will be paying as well. We've been working largely, Marcy, thank you, has been doing the work with Amazon Smiles. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Amazon Smiles, but it is a part of Amazon that allows you to, you're basically given donations through the purchases. So people can have an Amazon Smiles account, make purchases through that, and then Amazon donates a small portion of that purchase to your organization. So we are working on currently getting that set up for the OWMA. And then, as I mentioned, we've also been using PayPal for our membership dues, which has worked out very well. And when Sarah Leonard does her little boosts and emails, we tend to see some nice jumps in our membership payment when we do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next person on the list for treasurer's report is with Ohio Chapter of the Wildlife Society, Thomas Butler. You have
all right,
the floor,
hi there,
Thomas.
everybody. Give you a quick update on the Ohio Chapter's financial stuff here. So we started out the year with $21,356. We had expenditures of $1,460. This included things like t-shirt stuff for t-shirt sales. We sponsored the EECO student luncheon, and some expenses were incurred with the chainsaw training that we helped put together with the Ohio Forestry Association for the student chapters. So we also brought in some money. Obviously, this was mostly from dues to the Ohio Chapter of the Wildlife Society. And then we also had some income from some t-shirt sales and stuff like that. So our ending balance for the year is $21,880. So we were $500 in the black this year, which is excellent. So the finances for the Ohio Chapter are doing just fine. I'd also, I guess, is my last sort of duty as treasurer is to announce that Katie Dennison was elected the new treasurer for the Ohio Chapter of the Wildlife Society. I'm looking forward to reaching out to her and turning stuff over to her. So we have a peaceful transition of power, and that's all. That's that.
Thank you, Thomas, and congratulations, Katie. So that's the end of our officers' reports. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the OWMA officers' reports.
I'll motion.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Nick. And I guess ask for the same motion for Ohio Chapter of Wildlife Society to accept their officers' reports.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Caleb.
Moving down the list or the agenda this evening, we have the committee student chapter reports. Do we have any members from student chapters that would like to provide a report this evening?
I have one for the OSU TWS chapter. They weren't able to log on. They actually scheduled their first meeting tonight. So they're having their meeting right now. But I had Ava send me, so I was just going to read what she sent so that you guys kind of know what they've been up to. I can find that email real quick. She said that in the last year, obviously last year, all their members attended the OWMA conference. And they also got to go to the Ohio chapter AFS winter business meeting. They did a big spring break trip to Congaree National Park in Great Smoky Mountains. So they did a trip. They did some volunteer work doing honeysuckle removal at Olentangy Watershed. And they've been doing biweekly meetings, inviting professionals to speak either about their career or about, some topic that interested the chapter. So they've been kind of doing that all year, just trying to do some things they're looking forward to this year. Hopefully continuing those professional Zoom meetings, I guess, and trying to get out and do some hikes and some more volunteer work. And they hope to actually get to some workshops and hopefully get some other certifications and training opportunities for the students. So they're looking forward to anything we got for them. And hopefully they can be available. So that's all OSU had. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee, for providing that update for them. Anyone else?
So I can go on behalf of University of Rio Grande. I'm the president of their Wildlife Society chapter. And so far this year, we've been able to meet bi-weekly. We have been doing face-to-face classes. We did a Zoom meeting with Cody Grasser where he came in and he talked about careers in Ohio with Pheasants Forever. And we were able to partner with the Hocking College chapter for that, which was really nice because distance-wise, we're pretty far apart. So I don't think otherwise we would have been able to partner on that. The chapter also constructed a bridge in return for a donation, which that donation we were able to apply towards getting some members to attend that chainsaw workshop that Renee had been talking about, which I really want to thank you guys for that. That was an awesome workshop. I had just gotten a little bit of chainsaw experience this summer, and I was really excited to learn more. We had some students that went that had zero chainsaw experience, and then we also had some that have been working with chainsaws for years, and everybody walked away either feeling more comfortable or learning something new. And being able to get a certificate was also really awesome. We plan to continue doing these Zoom meetings with professionals. So if any of you guys would like to speak to the chapter about career paths or research, we would really love to hear from you. I think that our next Zoom meeting will be with Kelly Capuzzi. She works with the EPA, and she also does some really neat native bee hobby work on the side. So if you guys want to talk to us, we would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks for that good update for the Rio chapter.
So,
All right, well, we'll move on. So I'm going to provide a little bit of an update here on OWMA committee chairs. We had not had anybody in our legislative chairs for some time, and we had not had anybody in our resolutions chair for some time. The board voted that we basically change those duties into one position, and we also had a nomination for legislative chair, which was Nick Shell, and Nick Shell graciously accepted and was basically voted in as legislative/resolutions chair for both OWMA and the Ohio chapter of the Wildlife Society. Before Nick, the legislative chair was filled by Kendra Wecker, and when she became chief of division of wildlife, she had to step down from that position. And the basic duties of that legislative chair, just so we're all familiar, are, they keep OWMA up to date on any legislative policies. that are taking place in, in the wildlife and natural resources world. And as far as resolutions chair, they have the ability to call things to a vote if we're trying to possibly support one way or the other. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick for a legislative chair report.
Great. Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the nomination. Thanks for voting me in for the legislative responsibilities for both organizations, as well as the resolutions chair for OWMA. I've got two tidbits to report tonight, one locally and one nationally. For those that aren't aware, I just going to give an update on the recent Ohio Wildlife Council received a proposal for a change in their bag limits regarding waterfowl, migratory birds hunting season. On January 13th, there was a proposed to increase the combined number of Canadian geese and white-fronted geese that could be harvested daily during the hunting season to up to 5 waterfowl per day, 5 geese. So that's one thing locally. For those that weren't aware, I just thought I'd share for everyone in the call tonight. And then nationally, I'd like to propose writing a dual letter of support for dedicated funding via the recovery of wildlife, and that's through House Resolution 3742, the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. So for those that are familiar with that, it was introduced back in July of 2019 to the House, and then just recently on 12/24 of last year, it was placed on the calendar to move forward for discussion. So essentially that Recovering America's Wildlife Act of 2019, it would create an annual revenue source to restore habitat for species in greatest conservation need and enhance hunting and fishing opportunities. So I think that would be something worth merit of supporting from both organizations, and I'd be willing to draft something up and get support from membership on that. And with that, that's all I have for my report. And thanks for looking forward to the new role moving forward.
Thank you, Nick. Next on the list here is our historian committee chair, which is still Mr. Longbeard Alan Lee himself, who is recently retired. So congratulations, Alan. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And I would first with Nick's last thing there, I would move that OWMA move to support a letter and continue with that. So that's my motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Great, thanks, Alan.
And then I would, from a historian's perspective, I don't have a report per se for this year, but I will say I'm working on the bylaws and the Constitution and trying to incorporate some of the things and changes that we have made over the last year. And hopefully I will have that completed and we'll be able to vote on that. I'll send it to all of our board members sometime here after we get through with this conference and their schedules open up a little bit so that they can take a look at it. And then, before we send it out for a vote of the membership. But I would be remiss to say that the last 2 years that I have been involved with this conference and with this organization have been the best organized, and the folks that have been involved in your leadership with OWMA have been phenomenal. I've never seen in my membership of this organization a group of folks that were so committed to furthering this organization and making it better than it was before they joined. And we all need to commend these folks. Marcy has been phenomenal, and she has stepped up to a degree that I have not seen in my years with the membership. And Sarah has been something that has been terrific. Sarah Leonard, your work here has advanced this organization leaps and bounds above where we have been. And so I just have to say that, and I commend all of you for the work that you have done. Please, for the future of this organization, stay involved and keep up with the great work that you guys have done. And I just say thank you very much. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for the update, and thank you for those kind words. And I agree with what Alan has said. Marcy and Sarah have definitely put a lot of hard work as members of the board. Next on the agenda here is Sarah Leonard with an update on the website committee. I know she provided quite a bit of information earlier. Sarah, do you have anything to mention now?
I do, as if you guys haven't heard from me enough already. So just a little bit of a different perspective on what we're doing with the website and what that means for like our student engagement. So in an attempt to continue providing professional opportunities for students, the secretary will now also oversee student volunteers, especially students who are helping with the website. This year, I have put a lot of thought into what it means to be a student volunteer with OWMA, since I had started and still am a student technically. At the moment, we are looking for students who are interested in volunteering with our digital media. This committee will play a crucial role as we expand on offering workshops and other professional volunteer opportunities. To accomplish this, I have been working with one of our student volunteers, Daniela Guzman. Daniela has been a huge help in creating framework for student volunteers, and she has also been fantastic about getting the word out about OWMA to other students, particularly some at OSU. Daniela is a third-year vet student with a particular interest in zoo and wildlife medicine, and she is a wildlife vet section student rep. So what she has done for OWMA is introduced OWMA to veterinary students who are particularly passionate about wildlife, which is really awesome because that helps us expand our reach with people who are passionate about wildlife, and that's what really matters. We are also really excited because she was able to submit a student poster presentation with us, so you can find that on our channel. And I am also really thankful for the help that I've gotten from Denise Blau. She has a bachelor's degree in journalism and has worked with communications for OSU while she pursues her master's of environment and natural resources. And she uses her really great work ethic and her creative skills to help us with our website, and she intends to use that to further promote wildlife throughout her career. And so what I'm trying to get at is not only am I going to be responsible for the website as secretary and the students, I never had any formal web design. I've never had any formal social media. So if you guys have students that would be interested in volunteering and learning and trying something new, I mean, they'd have to be a little tech savvy, but you don't have to be, have a formal degree in this. And we want to bring more students in. And so if you guys have students that would be interested and excited to try to learn something new, I would be so excited to work with them. Because even though this year everything has been virtual, we still want to provide these opportunities and keep students involved. And it would be really nice to be able to kind of pass on what I have done with OWMA to other students after me. So I know this is kind of like a website, update, but the website, we would like to move forward with really incorporating students on it. So please spread the word. I would really appreciate it. And that's all I got.
Thanks for another good update there, Sarah. Next here on the agenda is our awards committee, and basically just the update on that is that we have selected members of the board to they've been tasked to basically perform those duties of selecting or finding someone to present our annual award to, and then they can bring that to the board, and we can put that to a vote. Okay, thanks, Marcy. Grace, you're next on the list here for the Ohio chapter of the Wildlife Society. You have the floor.
Yeah, well, similar with OWMA, we've gone a while without rounding out our committee chairs, but Jeff worked diligently and beat his head against the wall for nearly 6 years trying to fill our nominating committee. It's an inside joke, but So he did finally make some progress on finalizing our nominating committee in accordance with our bylaws, and also enhanced how we go about that committee a little bit. So moving forward, our nominating committee will be Mike Reynolds with the Division of Wildlife, a past president, and another representative in the field of academia yet to be determined. So that's it.
Thank you, Grace. Looks like earlier I got us a little off topic, and we already did our student chapter reports. So on to item number 3 here, old business. OWMA's IRS paperwork. It has been completed, so we're officially a nonprofit organization. Renee, you are, Marcy, do you have anything to add to that? You took care of all that paperwork.
Yeah, I've taken care of all of that and successfully submitted all of our taxes for the previous year. Didn't hear anything back, so that's all good news. And we're moving into our second year where I'll be filing our taxes again. I know it's like, who's excited about filing taxes, but this is exciting for us. So yeah, so far so good. Thanks for the confidence.
Renee, you're up next to provide an update.
So yeah, as you've kind of heard, we did a really cool chainsaw workshop. It was originally scheduled for March. That got COVID canceled real quick. I think it was actually scheduled for the Saturday before like we went into full-blown stay-at-home order. So that got canceled pretty early. And I think we were originally supposed to have 15 students. And I think we were going to get participation from Rio and OSU. And then we postponed it, reorganized, and we got it on the books for the fall. And we were able to, we had to reduce our numbers. We could only have 10 people, which included the instructor. So we could only have 9 students and none of us. So we offered it up to all the student chapters, hoping to get, you know, a few students from each chapter. And then when we didn't get enough from all the chapters, we opened it up to just students in general that are involved with TWS. We have several folks that are involved through Wittenberg and UD and Wright State. So we ended up with 5 students that actually were able to show. I think Rio had a few more that were going to attend, but they had to COVID quarantine due to exposure. So we ended up with 5 students, 4 from Rio, 1 from Wittenberg, and then myself. I was actually able to go because the numbers were so low, which was nice because then they weren't just like showing up at a location with an instructor. At least there was someone from our organization there. So it was a really good workshop. The OFA guys did a really good job. The training was really excellent. I got to participate. He wasn't going to let me not participate. So yeah, I think his name is Jeff. He did a really good job. The students, like as Sarah said, really enjoyed it. I think they all had a really good day out in the woods. It was a beautiful fall day. We got lucky and it was sunny and somewhat warm in the afternoon. Everybody got to drop a tree. We learned a lot of great, you know, safety, look up, down, and around, you know, kind of stuff. So it was good. Everybody got their certifications. I think it's something that we found value in trying to offer like every couple years and do it on a rotation. It wasn't the cheapest workshop to put on, but you know, definitely I would think that that would be something we could partner with you guys on next time, do a bigger workshop, get more students involved. Because I think it was really valuable. And as Sarah said, the students found it valuable as well. So that was really cool. So if you have any more questions, we can get more details, but just know that it was awesome. And there's lots of pictures, and I posted some sweet videos on our Facebook page. So check them out. And that's all I got for that.
Sounds like a fun day, Renee. Thanks for providing that update.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm like losing my voice. So I was like struggling through that whole thing. So sorry. Thank you.
Our next item is new business. And before I pass that off, or before we talk about Cody being the new president, I just want to basically announce that we had a late presenter video submission that was due to some miscommunication, basically when we initially contacted them and then to when they needed to provide us with a video. There was just a big lapse in communication, but nevertheless, this group of 3 employees with USDA APHIS stepped up to the plate and got us the video this week. Sarah Leonard uploaded that yesterday. So many of you may not have seen that yet. And that is the presentation on rabbit hemorrhagic disease. So please take a look at that tonight or tomorrow morning. Come up with some questions for those folks. They are going to be on the live Q&A video tomorrow morning. They're based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, so it'll be a little early for them since we're on Eastern Standard Time, but be prepared. Please be prepared to ask them some questions. Yeah, so the next item here for new business is, if we were in person, I'd be handing our fake gavel over to Cody Grasser as new president, and I would be stepping down. So it's been a pleasure to serve the membership and work with the board and plan this year's conference. We struggled with the idea of when do we make the decision to do in person versus virtual. And, at some point this summer, it's like, well, we got to make this decision, and we jumped. We did that, and thus far, I'm really happy with the format that we came up with, and looking forward to tomorrow's Q&A session. And the videos have been great. So, Cody, welcome to the top. Here's the gavel, bud.
All right. Well, I accept your fake gavel. Yeah, I'm looking forward to serving as president. Really hoping to keep that momentum Alan was talking about going and keeping this good thing going. Hopefully we have an in-person conference next year. Either way, we've learned a lot this year, and hopefully are better because of it, and retain some of those things we've adopted. So looking forward to it.
Caleb, I'm going to go off script real quick and take this opportunity to put up this award. If you can see it on my computer screen, I don't know if it's going to come up. Of course it's not.
Caleb, can you stop sharing? There you go.
Yep.
But I don't know why it won't pick it up, but essentially you can virtually accept your award and appreciation for your contribution serving as president. I've got it. We'll get it to you. And thanks a lot.
Caleb, you've done an excellent job. This was a difficult year to take the presidency, and I think that the whole board deserves a great round of applause, and your leadership really helped bring us together and get everything done. And I really appreciate everything you've done this past year. Great job.
Thank you, Marcy.
Yes.
The board, the OWMA board has been great, and we wouldn't be where we are without a group effort. So that definitely does not fall all on my shoulders. I've had some great leadership to advise me along the way. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Nick.
All right, well, I'll give some brief updates for new business. I also want to give a huge thanks to Jeff Westerfield stepping down as past president. Jeff did an amazing job at coordinating two major conferences that all happened in the same year in Cleveland, Ohio, one with the National Wildlife Society and then the Midwest Fish and Wildlife Conference, both of which OCTWS were big components of, at least from our point of view, we were. But it was a huge undertaking, a huge coordination at a national level with fundraising and presenters and vendors and things like that. It was huge, and he did an excellent job navigating it all. Maintained a positive attitude throughout the whole time, and even today, Jeff is still bringing up new ideas to the table on ways we can become stronger as an organization. So I want to give a big shout out to Jeff. Thank you for your service to the team. Yeah, big round of applause. And we look forward to Renee's energy coming to the table. Look forward to you taking over as leader. I have a really good feeling 2021 is going to be a great year, not only for OCTWS, but for our partnership with OWMA. I think I think we got great things in store. So other new business, I do want to mention quickly that we do have a PayPal button on our Facebook page where you can sign up to become an OCTWS member. It's an automatic renewal of a whopping $10 a year. So go ahead and check that out on Ohio Chapter of the Wildlife Society's Facebook page if you haven't done so already. Easy way to support. And we do have, we're already working on a workshop in 2021. It's the same one from 2020 that got pandemicked. Copyright, Gabe Carnes. And it's on early successional vegetation management. And we're really excited to pick that back up again and breathe some life into that workshop. And we'll get creative and bring something new and spectacular to our student chapters as well. And last but not least, so this is the time of the evening where we would all break and we'd head to the bar and drink and be merry and socialize and network. So after you all get off on your meeting, the first round is on me. I'm buying, but please go to your kitchens, go get your drinks, and let's all cheers to Ohio's wildlife. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Grace. Yeah, and I look forward to trying to do just as well, I guess, or better. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely hope we can get some stuff in person, though. That would be ideal to really kick it up a notch and get some student workshops this next year. That'd be ideal. I like working with the students. It's a lot of fun. So we'll see. We'll see what the pandemic brings us. I think that's what we'll. But I also wanted to say, too, that if you're ever wanting to get involved with us and you think 6 years is a really long commitment, it's really not, because 2 years went by like that. And now I'm like a third of the way done. So if you're ever a little hesitant about 6 years, it's right, Jeff? It's not that long, right? Just goes by so fast. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations, Renee. And thank you, Jeff, for your service to the Wildlife Society. With that, that was the last item on the agenda. So can I get a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I'll move.
Second? Awesome.
Second.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking around. I know we ran over our initial meeting time, but tonight's been good. I like this format, and maybe even when we do in-person stuff in the future, we can set up a camera and record it or have it live like this so that the rest of the membership across the state that has to travel a distance can attend that meeting. So thanks again. You guys have a good evening.
Don't forget about our Q&A tomorrow.
Yep, Q&A at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
While we still have folks here, let's talk about the fact that we had talked about doing the poster session online again. How do you guys think of that? I think that's a great idea to give those folks an opportunity to do this stuff without, being in person. So what do you think?
I think it's a great idea. Even if we do in-person conferences in the future, lots of people in the hallway during breaks, and you can't always get to look at posters the way you want to. And this provides them with a great platform to share their research.
Agreed.
And,
Agreed.
We'll leave that up to the poster presenters probably won't make it a requirement, but be highly encouraged.
It should also be marketed as an opportunity for students to lock in their investment of time and energy in a permanently digital platform where they can reference back to it in like a job interview, and it sort of becomes a job of their portfolio as they move forward. So that needs to be a part of that pitch, but I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, I agree with what Gabe said 100%.
All right, thank you.
I think moving forward, we're going to continue to utilize virtual tools wherever we can. I think it just brings an additional opportunity for us to share information with people across Ohio, perhaps some that, can't travel but want to be a part of something. and want to participate, this is still a great opportunity for us to bring that to them.
Thanks, Alan, for bringing that up. I think we talked about that yesterday, and I forgot to add it to the agenda. So thanks for reminding us.
And you're right, we did, but I just thought it would be something that we throw out to everybody. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Appreciate that. Well, we already adjourned, but I'm able to stick around if anybody else has anything to discuss.
It's good to see you all.
Yeah, it's great to see all of you.
Yeah.
See you.
All right,
Take care.
guys. Have a good night.
Hey,
Thank
hi,
you.
John.
Cheers.
I want to formally acknowledge Alan's beard too before we go.
It's stunning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, as I said to you, when you send a guy home to work in March and then he retires in November, he has a lot of time to put this energy toward this kind of a thing. So everybody can do it. You just need to just put the energy toward it.
Well, mine comes in white. My kid's running, stranger danger. So
Westerfield's got a nice beard going there too, although he has trimmed it obviously since I've last seen him.
1 inch. It's 1 inch.
Well, that's true. You have the division mandate, but you have a mustache. Now you don't look quite as Amish as you did before.
That's good.
Yeah, because
Still like cheese.
Joe won't get the calls on you, asking for who's the Amish guy traipsing around shooting deer in my backyard. That's good.
this is the best part of the meeting. I'm going to just say it's been a great, very productive meeting, but
you're right. This is the social portion where we should all be drinking a beer.
yeah. It's good seeing everyone. That's for sure.
Good to see you, John.
Absolutely.
Welcome aboard, Mark.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, Mark.
Mark Wiley still
Very
on?
happy to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I missed the tail end of the meeting. I had a major computer malfunction.
That happens.
That's okay.
Congratulations.
You can watch the recording sometime.
I will. I fully expect Cody Grasser went, hold up, everybody. Mark Wiley just left the meeting. Let's all just wait for Mark to come back. Yeah.
I was kidding, Mark. When you texted me, I didn't announce it to the.
He
I'm
did.
disappointed in you.
Let's recount those votes.
Right. Yes. Impeachment. Yeah. I figured I'd come back to the middle of an impeachment.
Yeah, we've stopped counting. We're going to continue overnight, and we'll have a new president in the morning.
Wouldn't blame you.
Oh, good.
I did reach out to Christina and thanked her for participating in the election, and she still wants to participate in whatever capacity we would like for her to participate, and she's interested in running again next year, and that's exactly what we want.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
We'll
Thank
see you
you,
guys
everyone.
tomorrow.
Take off. Yep.
See you in the morning.
Nice to see you guys.
Take
Have a
care.
good night.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Have a great night.
Hi,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks
Good job,
for all.
everybody.